Nice. How's everybody on the interwebs? How are we? I am kayteezee, local times, 11:47 a.m. Wow. I have been nursing a COVID infection for weeks. Might as well be 7 a.m. I feel like it's first thing in the morning. Just 1 second, okay? I'm letting Facebook know that I'm coming online. And yes, I do stream on Facebook. I'm Gen X. We still do that. So there you have it. Functional neurological disorder. I'm seeing, I'm a pattern recognizer, and I have been noticing some posts here on the TikTok, but also, of course, elsewhere about people experiencing functional neurological disorder symptoms around, for whatever reason, causing, correlating, I don't know, with COVID. And I was like, hey, I've had functional neurological disorder. Let's just see if I can share a little bit about what it is. And I'm just making sure that I'm not on Facebook because I don't want Facebook. Where is my Zoom? Hi. Okay, check it out. Good morning. Good morning. Facebook, if you don't know, I am internet famous again. Yes, I know. It's been a year. It's been a year since I've been internet famous. I showed a scar. All right, so who am I? I am Katie. I'm kayteezee. Good morning. And I have been nursing a COVID infection for weeks. Finally, am feeling a little bit human. And just thought I'd jump on. Let's have some morning tea. Here, look at my little fake little rainbow I gave myself. So something you might not know about me yet is in 2019, I was living in Los Angeles in a horrendously abusive household that it was also my boss. Yeah, don't ever work with friends like that. And I became paralyzed from the waist down. And was diagnosed with FND, Functional Neurological Disorder. And so this is that tale as I remember it. I have a couple of resources open on the onlines so that if I'm giving information, it can be kind of accurate. I'm not worried about accuracy too much right now. I'm not making a claim. I'm sharing my experience, my personal lived experience. Your experience might be different, and that's cool. So my FND was a manifestation of complex relational trauma. And it started in my feet with neuropathy, with pins and needles, where I was becoming unable to feel my feet. If you've ever worn like dance shoes that are uncomfortable, or if you're a rock climber and you wear rock climbing shoes or heels or something like that, there's that kind of thing where after you've been in them in a while, you lose sensation just because of they're not good on the feet. It was like that all the time. I had maintained a relationship with somebody from a mental health perspective who we just shifted to a coaching relationship. Clearly, we can't have therapy across the country. And she kept saying I was being abused, and I was just very much committed to that not being true, especially since these were my friends of over 20 years. Why that wouldn't be happening. I was also in a period of profound grief. My mother had just died. And I do believe I was targeted because of that, as in I was weak. Oh, Dawn. The narcissism is strong with that one. So, I was having seizures, non-epileptic seizures, I think they're called, like full-on seizures. I was having, I had the neuropathy in my feet, and then I became weaker and weaker and weaker, and my hands were trembling. I was unable to stand with confidence. There was a ton of pain. I was experiencing a great deal of pain. And also strange, like electric signals from my body, where if you're familiar with the concept of meridians in Chinese medicine, or if you've ever had acupuncture or acupressure, all those pathways that they're working on were like, I mean, it felt like somebody was holding a cattle prod to parts of my body. There was so much literal charge going through my body. And I remember at first being shocked, and then understanding what that was, and thinking, you know, because I know this, I know what the body, I understand meridians. Yeah, you can't think yourself out of something like that. And it got to a point where I just demanded a bed in a hospital because I was a fall risk. And my tormentor had me convinced that if I was transparent with her spouse, that he would just basically abandon me and either kick me out or make it so that I had to be in the household by myself, unable to walk. I was already lying on pee pads all day. I mean, it was bad. It was really bad. And so I spent I convinced him like 4 days, I think, in a hospital. I had a complete MRI of my central nervous system, so my brain and my spinal cord, to rule out MS, because I thought, oh, heckin', I've got multiple sclerosis now happening. We ruled out MS, could have been ALS. And so FND, I think we probably have enough of a little folks coming in. So I'm at Mass General's website. And Mass General is a hospital in Boston. They have a functional neurological disorder unit, and they're one of the few hospitals. Hi, Chris. They're one of the few hospitals that I'm aware of that actually has a place where a patient can go for treatment specifically for functional neurological disorder. I'm just going to call it FND. The old name for it is conversion disorder. So if you have the misfortune of ever being in front of a healthcare provider who believes in Freud, they're going to tell you that you're just, you know, you have stress and it's converting and you're crazy. And I'm putting that in quotes because, of course, if it's idiopathic meaning there's no known cause for these symptoms, these disorders, it must be the patient's fault. It can't be any kind of limitation of testing or knowledge. It's always, of course, on the patient. So here's what Mass General has to say about FND, functional neurological disorder. FND is a problem largely impacting the function of the brain. It is considered a condition directly at the intersection of neurology and psychiatry. It's known as a neuropsychiatric disorder. In FND, the normal pathways your brain uses to move, feel, speak, walk, think are disrupted. And it promotes symptoms such as paralysis, which I did experience, seizures, which I did experience. The executive functioning or lack thereof was profound, and I was dissociating quite a bit as well. In in 2019, I just did a quick search this morning to see if I could find my source, and I'm not able to, but I know in 2019, when I was reading about this, 2019, 2020, I got to a point where I became aware that, what did I come up with? Sorry, hold on. Is it the third most common reason people are referred to neurologists? But it's considered a rare disease. It's the third most common reason. It's like up there in the top 5 reasons a person goes into a neurologist's office, but it's rare. That's weird. Oh, good. It has been called hysteria in the past. We don't use that word anymore, of course. So here's a list of symptoms that Mass General puts forward. And if you have friends who are experiencing long COVID symptoms that are neurological, these might sound familiar. I don't know. I'm not an expert in long COVID. I see a familiar list. Weakness, tremors, speech problems, memory problems, often considered a software problem rather than a hardware problem. Rare disease, the rare disease database. So conventional, I'm now on raredisease.org. FND is a condition at the interface between the specialties of neurology and psychiatry. Conventional tests such as MRI, EEGs are typically normal. I like the word unremarkable. They're unremarkable typically in patients with FND. However, now I'm back on rare diseases. This is not me having an opinion. However, it is now established that FND is common cause of disability. It is a common cause of disability. Let's see what else they have to say. I think that's all I wanted to say there. There's an international organization called FND Hope, FNDHope.org. And this is what FNDHope.org have to say about COVID-19 and FND. Oh, and I should say, clearly I can move, right? Like I got out of it. I got out of the abuse. I got into appropriate therapy for the trauma, to resolve the trauma, because my paralysis was caused by my tormentors in LA. I'm very glad about that, because then I got cancer and then it was the pandemic. It's been a big fun years. It's been a big fun few years. Let's take a break and just see how the TikTok is doing. How are the TikToks over here? I'm still learning how to interact with nobody, interact with screens on the internet. All right, well, I'll just continue. So here's what FND Hope International has to say about COVID-19. I experience this as a support space. I do not experience this as a science space. It might be a science space. I have not interacted with FND Hope beyond support. And I just want to clarify that, because I don't know for sure. No, this is from the International Medical Advisory Board. So let's just assume there is some science behind what I'm reading you. High risk individuals. Okay, FND itself is not a risk factor for developing COVID, of course not. Those with FND who experience severe reduction in mobility may be vulnerable to chest infections. Oh, this is vulnerable. This must be from the beginning of the pandemic. Yes, I want to know what FND Hope has to say about long COVID, because while I have been nursing my COVID infection, Guess what's back? Correlation, not causation. I cannot claim causation. The timing is suspicious. So in the last, I'm now going into week 3 here, managing this infection and now a secondary infection from COVID-19. My dystonia is up. Dystonia is something that happens when your body moves on its own and you don't want it to. The neuropathy is up. It's worse, especially in my extremities, my hands, my feet. That does not seem to be abating, even with this probable ending of the primary infection of the COVID-19. And it's up on my mind right now because I'm at risk for long COVID. We are all at risk for long COVID. Long COVID is a phenomena of chronicness that can occur with some people who develop COVID infections, regardless of how severe. And it is either a temporary, long-term, or I'm sure for some people, it is going to be a permanent disability. I already carry a lot of these symptoms. Here is one case report that I just looked in, Frontiers in Neurology. Long-lasting symptoms have been reported in considerable, I'm in Frontiers in Neurology. I'm going to safely assume if it's published in the Frontiers of Neurology, somebody who is a peer of these authors took a look and said, yeah, it's worthy of publication. That's literally what peer review is. And what they say is, I don't know because it's not coming up. Okay, we'll just stay here. Long-lasting symptoms have been reported in a considerable portion of patients after a severe acute respiratory syndrome, SARS-CoV-2 infection. This condition, defined either as post-acute COVID or long COVID or long-haul COVID, has also been described in outpatients and individuals who are asymptomatic during the initial infection. Doesn't matter how sick you are when you have the COVID, we are at risk for developing long COVID. It is a complex, this is a 23-year-old man, 23-year-old man. This is a young kid. Diagnosis of FND was made. He, after 4 months of targeted therapy and psychoanalytic therapy at a center specifically for the treatment of FND, this person was able to resolve some of it. And he presented in 2021, nasopharyngeal swab, 4 months, patients. Because we don't care about all of his details, do we? No. Coronavirus disease. Even the asymptomatic type represents a stressor that may act in some individuals as a precipitating factor for FND, functional neurological disorders. I cannot tell you how much you do not want this experience. You don't want it. You don't. For one thing, I had back to when I was diagnosed in 2019, I'm talking with fancy pants neurology lady who has some fancy pants position at a fancy pants hospital. And she really did look at me like I was not sane because my MRI was clear. So why can't I walk? I'm like, gee, maybe it's not my nerves. Maybe it's how they're communicating with each other. Hello. Something else which is interesting, which I remember reading about and hearing about, again, I'm just going based on my memory of my lived experience back in 2019. I am not making any scientific claims right now, but I do remember in one of the groups I joined, somebody shared some articles about the thinking is that it has less FND, as I understood it, was less about how the signals exit the brain and more about how they return to the brain. I still don't know why we're not talking about the vagus nerve right here. I really don't, but we're not. So the risk of long COVID is non-zero. And I guess there does seem to be some kind of possible correlation between COVID, receiving like a COVID infection and experiencing functional neurological disorder. And I'm here to tell you this is tracking with my experience. So thankfully, the tremors have stopped. I've had tremors for the last 2 weeks. The loss of sensation in my legs was from my knees down. See, there's so much I haven't been sharing with you. From my knees down, I had lost a lot of sensation during the very height of the very, very active phase of my COVID infection. I've now managed to re-establish sensation. The dissociation I'm not experiencing because I'm not in a moment of trauma. But I do have to have a come to Jesus moment with my oncologist about what does this now COVID infection potentially mean for my immune system and the likelihood of recurrence of my cancer, because I can't handle the life-extending drugs. So without the life-extending drugs, the recurrence of my cancer for the global population is about 65% in 5 years. I'm at the 2-year mark since treatment. We're getting there. This is great. This to me is success. I'm moving through these 5 years. But then I also think, like, as the 5 years, so does the potential window. Morning tea. Let's have a cup of tea. Facebook can't talk to me because I'm doing it through the Zoom. What about the their TikTok? How are we doing over here? I upset the Davids of the internet this week by having a mastectomy and not minding. We all good? Okay. I feel like now is a good time to mention that Black Lives Matter and all cops are bastards. There was a study done at Mass General. I'm back on FND. A study done at Mass General in 2019, March of 2019. It was like right when I was diagnosed. I don't know what follow-up there has been done or not on fMRI scans, functional imaging. On functional imaging, the brains of people with FND do behave differently. This is a form of neurodivergence. Functional neurological disorder, in the concept of neurotype as what are the different kinds of neurodivergencies that we might have. FND, to my mind, is an acquired neurotype. It's an acquired neurodivergence. And when I'm just thinking back, like I can remember as I was losing the use of my legs, I never fully lost the use of my legs, but as I was using the loss of my legs, I can remember very clearly thoughts like, okay, well, my mother died, so I can, buy, I was looking at getting a $30,000 dog just to be able to live in this house. That is how convinced I was. It wasn't the house or the people in it that were causing my abuse. Yeah, I've worked through that. I'm still carrying a lot of anger. They also stole $40,000 in wages from me. But hey, man, if you think that's cool, stay friendly with them. But as I remember, like, okay, well, I'm going to be in a wheelchair. And what does that mean? If I'm in a wheelchair, and what does that mean from a limitation of my body perspective, and what does that mean for how am I going to age? Where is the best place for me to live? What kind of accommodations do I need? I mean, like, I'm doing all of this. And I'm very grateful I was able to get my way out of it, but not everybody can, not everybody will. And because it is a complex reality at the intersection of neuroscience, your neurologist, and psychiatry, the way through, the resolution is multidisciplinary. How many people have access to care at that level? How many people are likely to even be seen as reasonable, presenting with symptoms that don't make sense because your nervous system is fine and everything should be working and I don't know what's wrong with you, especially if you have a vagina. What do you think? I don't think very many. So back to my narrative, once I was informed that there was nothing physically wrong with my nervous system, that they couldn't see anything remarkable, I remember very clearly, I got this huge smile on my face and the neurologist was like, she's like, what? And I go, so all of the pain I'm experiencing is misfiring. It's not signaling damage. And she's like, no, it's not signaling damage. I'm like, okay. So I am my own way out of this. But I had resources. My mother had just died. I had money from her death to put into my health. By the way, it's almost all gone, right? Because I had the FND. I had 2 major moves. I had to resolve the FND, and then I got to have cancer right at the beginning of COVID. But hey, man, that's why, I gotta be alive. I gotta be alive to retire. So I'm okay with that. I think my mother would approve. Had I not that resource, I wonder what might be different. We might not be sitting here having this conversation. Diagnosis and management, treatments of patients with FND, a framework for the understanding of the pathopsychology of FND. Why do we have to Why do we have to pathologize? I like that word. I'm not going to purchase you for $36. Y'all know that once a paper is published, the authors get none of the money if you pay for it. Yes? Do we know that? Okay, well, hopefully we know that now. I'm just looking at some of these titles of articles. I'm seeing emotion processing. I'm seeing limbic, paralimbic disturbances. The solution, you fix it bottom up. You don't fix it top down. Right? Bottom up meaning from the body. So my success in resolving FND is 100% rooted in proper addressing of the complex trauma that brought it on. And but somebody else's FND, if it's like a vaccine injury, or there's one guy on TikTok, and I didn't grab his account first. He's another young one. He was like 24, 25 maybe. And he posted a video recently walking without support in a grocery store. And that was like the gain of the century. You can have these outcomes with any level of COVID infection. Not you will have these outcomes. You could have these outcomes. Your child could maybe. Yeah, so I had FND. I was paralyzed from the waist down. If you saw me walking, I was walking like it looked like I had a really good 17 martini lunch is what it looked like. I was walking like I was wasted. I got an apartment on the second floor in part because nothing was wrong with my, like I really wanted to encourage my nervous system to remember that it has the potential to function. And but I would have to lean on the wall to walk down the stairs because I was concerned about falling. Yeah, weird. I loved my cane though. I rocked that cane. No shame, no embarrassment, perfectly fine. The cognitive impact though, that I'm not sure that I have, that I ever recovered from it, because as I was resolving the FND, I found stage 3 breast cancer, and then of course did 6 months of chemotherapy and turned all of this into more mush. And now I've had a COVID infection. A COVID infection. Despite I have not kissed anybody since the beginning of the pandemic. Nope. I have not had the naked closeness, you know, that we all need, and some of us, I mean, like I enjoy. 3 years. I sleep in my bed alone. If anybody is in my household, we all have masks on. Some exceptions. I have one client who, until she got her hearing aids, I did not wear a mask with her because she needed to be able to understand me. Anybody else who is as COVID cautious as I am will be like on opposite sides of the room. But if we're masks on. I wear a mask every time I go out in public. I caught a COVID. I managed to contract COVID by very likely, what is the timing of that? Let me go back, because it was the 10th. It was the beginning of January. Well, clearly it was because we were right after New Year's. So we're in that, you know, that period of post-holiday bloom. But I was, let's see, I went to the vet, I was teaching, I had a friend in Pittsburgh. We are COVID cautious, but I mean, I was around people. Which brings me to the gaslighting. I'll probably stop the rambling thoughts soon. The gaslighting. Okay. I do everything that I can online because I don't like to go to the hospitals anymore because I had cancer, and hospitals equal cancer to my body, whether or not I'm there for a party. This is how my body responds. And this nurse I was talking to, this would have been a couple weeks ago when I confirmed my COVID. I had my negative or my rapid test. And I thought, and I did qualify for Paxlovid because I'm immune compromised. I'm immune compromised. And so this nurse said, yeah, I just tell people, like, just wear a mask if it makes you feel better. And I said, well, are you also informing people of the very real risk of developing long COVID and the very real risk of organ failure, stroke, heart attack? The first year after, like this next year, you guys, we all of my friends, this next year, we are just holding the kayteezee. We're holding all of this in just super safe passage moving through. And so this nurse tells me that she's telling people only if it not, whatever. And I'm like, how do you think I got COVID? How, what? Fucking capitalism. Fucking capitalism. So I gave her a little wag of the finger. If you're a healthcare provider and you're telling people that, they don't need to mask, and you're not also giving them the information that they could become permanently disabled, you're removing their ability to give informed consent. This past week, now I'm back on long COVID. Yeah, I know I'm kind of all over the place, but I'm still like, well, first of all, it's morning tea. And secondly, I'm getting over, I'm still kind of sick. Okay. So we're just going to be patient with me today. Back on long COVID Paxlovid. Again, I'm going by memory. This is morning tea. If I want to make a point in a claim, I will, of course, cite a source. I'm having a memory. Earlier this week, some studies came out, and I'm going to believe these epidemiologists and immunologists that I study or follow. This is not the news. This is coming from scientists, that Paxlovid does look to reduce the possibility of long COVID. So I feel good there. I've had six vaccinations. Also this week, a little bit of number crunching coming out that the bivalent booster lasts about 3 months. Let's see when I got my bivalent booster. 10/20/22. 11/12 January would be about 3 months. I got my COVID infection on January 10, 2023, almost 3 months to the day. I am putting myself on a 3-month cycle with this. I just don't know what kind of permission I need. My pharmacist will do it if I can find a way to do it. He's wonderful. He's been so great. But 6, and I still fucking got it because I'm immune compromised. And now I get to have a conversation with I don't know who about functional neurological disorder, because I would like not to be paralyzed again. Very much so. It was a not fun experience. I don't recommend it. The pain that came from it was the worst. But go have your parties and stuff. I feel so sad about that. So I guess my point is that functional neurological disorder came to me. I manifested it, the body, it did it. In 2019, I was paralyzed from the waist down. I managed to get my way out of it only because I have access and resources. Only because I have access and resources. Only because I have access and resources. Resources which are dwindling So I don't know. I think, oh my gosh, that's right. I think I'm going to become a pro dom and allow cisgender mediocre white men to believe that they're upsetting me by commenting on my body for $250 an hour. Yeah. And on that note, I'm going to ride the high of this. This is the first tea I've had in a few days. Oh, it's so nice to be able to like even just be upright. And I mean, like, I still feel like crap. It's been almost a month. Oh my God. So now I'm no more COVID infection. Every COVID infection increases my risk of organ failure and death. Here's 2. Have a good day.